Tony D and Little Joan in the background, and this is your screenwriter's take on Tombstone, the 1993 classic starring Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer and just about everybody else in Hollywood at the time. I know. I actually never saw it all the way through until tonight. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys. The books 1 through 17. Available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. This also could have been called Mustache, the movie. Great stashes all around. Great stashes. So yeah, I had always seen many clips. It was one of those movies I felt like I'd already seen because I'd seen so much of it. So the more I saw of it, the less I was motivated to actually see the entire movie because I'd seen all the highlights of it. Plus I had read about, the gunfight at the OK Corral, and I knew some from that. I knew there's Powers Booth. There's Kyle Reese as Johnny Ringo. Val Kilmer, of course. I mean, Michael Rooker. Everybody's in this damn thing. Charlton Heston's in it. Dana Delaney. So, let's break down the non-spoiler review first, and then I'll do the spoilers. So, if you haven't seen it, and you probably already have before me, it's a pretty classic Western. It's got a bit of a 90s take on it. There's a little bit of a 90s vibe in there. And you might say, what is that? Well, you know how everything went woke and crazy like a couple of years ago? In the 90s, they tried that, and it didn't quite work. And they were super subtle about it a lot of times. So in Tombstone, that kind of stuff is like, there's a little bit in there. It's a little bit in there with Dana Delaney and the love story with her and Kurt Russell. But beyond that, it's there's very little of it, and that kind of stuff didn't really scan in the 90s. Like, it was there, and you just go, okay, the girls had a scene, let's move on. But it's a badass movie. It's a badass movie because the concentration of the movie is gunfight, like 9 million of them. Basically, it follows the history of Wyatt Earp and his brothers and Doc Holliday. It's probably, according to Razorfist, who I would defer to, him being an Arizona resident and being a Western guy, he says the one with Dennis Quaid is a little more authentic in terms of the performance, like historically. But of course, Val Kilmer's performance is extremely iconic and very memorable. It's just so entertaining to watch him in every scene of this movie. So it really was probably his best movie. I mean, that he got to perform. Not necessarily his most high-grossing movie or, say a movie that was super entertaining like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I love. But in terms of his performance, I mean, he, despite the amazing amount of talent in this movie, Val Kilmer towers above them all. And it's really an achievement for him as an actor. Because, it's really Kurt Russell's movie. But Kurt, of course, gives a nice subdued performance. He was always a very much of a team player. And Wyatt, his character, is kind of like that too. He's kind of sort of trapped as the responsible brother in the midst of all this. And it was great to see Bill Paxton again. I miss Bill Paxton. He was such an awesome actor. Man, when I saw him, I was like, oh, Bill Paxton, man. Yeah, the movie's just great. It's got great detail in it. Such hope in the beginning. a little bit like Unforgiven. You see sort of a character arc where things get dark for a while. But unlike Unforgiven, the ending is, I think, pretty hopeful. Pretty hopeful. Um, Although there's a couple of things you're kind of like, well, what happened to that character? But um, there's a lot of history here. They're kind of digging through for the movie, but what little I remember, you're pretty on target. I know you're gonna be Western nuts. You could call me out if you want, but look, I enjoyed it. It was very entertaining. There's enough of the history in here for me. But yeah. So thumbs up. You should see it if you haven't. I think you'll like it. All right. So let's break down the screenplay and pick it apart so you hate it. No, I'm just kidding. So it's a Western, and it starts out with the Cowboys. And the Cowboys were a phenomenon during this time. They wore red sashes, and I guess you could say they were the organized crime of their day. That's the way they kind of frame it in the movie. Not true, actually. I mean, actually, the mafia was already in America before them, but I mean, that's a good way to frame it, though. They were essentially organized crime because they were a gang, they were organized, and they were criminals. They even have a bunch of old movies at the beginning, and I'm pretty sure it's mixed with fake old movies. Because one shot in particular, I was like, oh, that's a modern shot right there. But eventually, after we see the Cowboys come in and shoot everybody at a Mexican wedding, the Earps arrive in the town, in the Tombstone, where they're going to start new lives. They are retired at this point, didn't want to get involved in a bunch of nonsense, wanted to go straight, as it were. They were straight, they were lawmen, but they were a little sketchy. The Earps were a little sketchy, they would bend some rules here and there. But for the most part, they were about law and order. And although Doc Holliday, he was a wild card. And then, so they come into town, and at first, Wyatt sets up shop at some saloon, runs a card game, and they start making some money. It's very sort of random, the way things happen in this movie, which I like. It gives a feeling like it's real life. Things just happen. People just do stuff. I need to make money. Let me go into the toughest bar in town and see what happens. And he does. And Billy Bob Thornton's in it in a very early appearance where he's looking kind of chunky. And so that's a great scene. And so they set up shop in the bar. But it's a wild town. The Cowboys are operating there. And there's a confrontation between the leader of the Cowboys and Earp. And basically, he wins a card, so it's kind of okay. And they're kind of... And Johnny Ringo sort of threatens Doc Holliday, and they kind of goof around. And they kind of come to some unspoken understanding, like, well, all right, the Cowboys are going to continue to operate. The Earps are just going to be here. And for a while, that works. Meanwhile, you got details like Earp's wife being addicted to opium, and the Doc Holliday's, condition, and his girlfriend, who's a prostitute. I think she was a prostitute. Although they don't really play that up in the movie too much, I don't think, other than she's sort of his partner in crime in one scene. They show a good scene with him winning a card game and leaving. But all in all, the Earps are just going to say, we're not going to get involved. But eventually it gets so bad in town, they're forced to get involved. And it starts with Virgil, because he's just had it. Then Morgan decides, well, I gotta be involved too because he's my brother, and then Wyatt kind of stays out of it until he's sort of forced to be deputized and then join his brothers fighting essentially the cowboys, because the cowboys are just completely out of control and they just won't stop. Then the sort of peak of the movie, right smack in the middle, is the OK Corral, which, again, my knowledge of this era is, I haven't really, I got to look up more stuff on it, but for the most part, it's vaguely what I remember. Some of at least the broader details seem to be on point. And so that plays out. This, of course, the third act, I guess you could say, or I guess really the peak of the movie is the confrontation between Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday, which happens a little later. But the OK Corral sets off the reaction, which goes very poorly. Very poorly. I mean, Virgil gets shot, Morgan gets killed, and Wyatt's just like, man, I've had it with these guys. And he goes right back into being a lawman, and he takes these people down. Shoots a lot of dudes. Eventually even recruiting some of them to his side, because things are going so poorly at that point for the cowboys. They just go, listen, we'll join you. And then, of course, the big scene is they kill, was it McCormick? And I forget who he was in the movie, but I believe he was, I think he was a semi-famous cowboy, if I'm remembering correctly. Let me look at Tombstone, see what actor it was. McCormick. See, the pictures don't match the characters as they were in the movie. that makes them hard to pick out. So you got to go by the names. But like, everybody's in this friggin' thing. Yeah, Henry Hooker was Charlton Heston. Was just, holy crap. Stephen Lang, Thomas Hayden Church, Dana Delaney. Let's see, McCormick, Lawries, Billy Zane. Oh, Billy Zane has a great turn as Mr. Fabian, the actor. That's a great little side character, which I don't know if that was in it or not in real life. I don't think so. There is McCormick. I don't see McCormick on this list. Rest of cast alphabetically. Okay. McCormick. Yeah, I don't remember who McCormick was. Maybe he was just a rando that... Robert Mitchum did the narrator. I mean, Jesus. I don't see McCormick on here. I guess they don't have every single person in the movie. But man, what a cast. So at that point, Wyatt loses his cool, says he's going to confront Johnny Ringo alone. And of course, it looks like Doc Holliday's too sick to go. But when Johnny sees a man in black approaching, he thinks it's Wyatt Earp, and there it is, Doc Holliday. So they have a great scene between him and Doc Holliday. Of course, Doc Holliday wins that match. And then the conclusion, really, the peak of the movie is the death scene with Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. Really about their friendship, and Doc telling him to leave, basically doesn't want to see him die, but telling him also to live your life, Wyatt, live. Telling him to marry that actress. I don't know how realistic that was, historically speaking. I think that was probably framed for Hollywood. That sounds like a Hollywood frame. They wanted to frame it in a love story. This is 1993, by the way, so yeah, straight love stories were actually a thing at one time in movies. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. But that kind of encapsulates the whole movie. even though Earp's married, he kind of just abandons his wife, I think. Although it seemed that way in the movie, even so, I'm not sure what happened in real life. I'm gonna have to read about it, um, yeah. So a lot of it hinges on the great friendship between Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, and that's cool. It's a cool movie between many good actors. Sam Elliott's incredible mustache and Bill Paxton. Sad to see Bill Paxton dying in a movie since he's now dead, but God, pretty damn epic. Pretty damn epic. I would give it. I'd give it a 9, a solid 9. I wouldn't give it a 10. I don't think I'd rewatch it. I kind of don't like the scenes with Kurt Russell and Dana Delaney. I think they're kind of boring. I feel a little bit tacked on. I would have liked to seen something a little more like, I'm gonna abandon my wife and get with this hot chick. Which I feel like that was the real story, but I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Or maybe his wife was by that time like a full blown addict. He couldn't stand her. But the movie is just, it's got a great look to it. It's got a great pacing. You don't feel like you're sitting around waiting for something to happen. Stuff's constantly happening in the movie, especially with Val Kilmer. Oh my God. Every scene with Val Kilmer was like spectacular. Oh, Michael Rooker's in this. I forgot that. Michael Rooker. Is he McCormick? Hold the phone. Maybe he was McCormick. Because he doesn't show up after that. McMasters. Maybe he said McMasters. So is he dead by that time in the movie? Before the confrontation with Johnny Ringo? He might be. That might be him. Okay. I think he said McMasters. I thought he said McCormick. But yeah, it's just it's star-studded. Now that's not a screenwriting thing, but doesn't hurt. Everything is happening. It's a bigger world. Things are constantly moving on. You know, Doc Holliday's sickness doesn't stop at all for the movie. What else? You know, you get updates on his condition when he goes and visits a doctor. You see the scene where Doc Holliday, you know, he in the OK Corral, he just comes right out there. He's almost got a death wish. But then later, when they're taking out the Cowboys, the leader, Kurt Russell just wades out into the river in the middle of like open space and just starts shooting dudes. And it's just like, whoa, he doesn't give an F. Now, again, I don't think it happened that way. That felt like a movie moment, but it's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. I think the setup with the bad guys is a little much with the Mexican wedding, but they did do stuff similar. You know, they did horrible things. They murdered people and just took their money. But, yeah, I mean, it's got all the great elements of a Western. You know, it's got action, it's got drama, it's got a love story, it's got revenge, tons of guns, some dudes get hanged. I mean, some of that S is like just a footnote in one of the montages, still doing montages in 93. Man, the montage of violence, A+. A+. That's the part of the movie I could rewatch. That whole montage where, like, Kurt Russell's just taking everybody out. Oh, spectacular. Hanging dudes, shooting dudes, left and right. They're dropping dead. Man, he goes after him. I got to read the history on this thing again. So, you know, you got a lot here. So when you writing a movie and you're worried of putting too much in it, you know, you could always cut it out. I'm sure there were a couple of scenes that were cut out of this movie. In fact, I remember seeing a scene which I didn't see in the movie between Val Kilmer and his wife. maybe I wasn't paying attention at that point, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't in the movie. Either that, maybe I saw a cut down version of it. I don't think so. But yeah, so don't be afraid, like, to put that kind of scene in the movie because it was exciting. You know, when Kurt Russell's taking out the gang and you see a lot of the gang, like, you realize, holy crap, he had to kill like dozens of guys. He had to take out dozens of guys. And then some of the guys he never even caught up to. Some of them lived like years later and died in completely unrelated ways. So, you know, it's probably not historically accurate, but it's probably movie historically accurate. In other words, they got a lot of the big stuff right, and the only stuff they really changed was to work the narrative a little bit, so the movie would actually end and it would feel like an ending. So, and it really focused a lot on that friendship, which held it together. Because you kind of wanted to see where that was going, you know? Would Doc betray him? I mean, it was a great scene where, you know, they're like, Doc, why are you doing this? And he's just like, Wyatt Earp is my friend. And he's like, well, I got lots of friends. And he goes, I don't. I haven't. I think he says, I haven't. So that's a great moment because it's not only a response to the question, but it gives you insight into his character. He's a lonely guy. He doesn't have many friends, and he considers Wyatt his great friend. Even if that's not necessarily true historically, it's good enough for the movie. It's stuff like that. I think in movies that are based on history, you're kind of okay to take a little bit of license if you don't go too far with it. Because they were friends. How good of friends, I don't know if we really can tell from the history of that time, but they certainly hung out a lot, so they're probably decent friends. But it's kind of hard to relate to people that era because they acted a little differently, you know. It was just a different time. It's hard to wrap your brain around it in some ways. But man, the dialogue on this got some interesting catchphrases from the era, and it's just a grueling movie. You know, Bill Paxton's death scene is pretty grueling. You know, a lot of people die in this, a lot of actors, and I don't know. I thought it was A+, really, but again, I give it a 9 just because I felt a little bit of it. Yeah, the love story to me dragged. I mean, I get it. I get why they put it in there. But because he was married, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because he was married, it makes Wyatt, I think, a little less sympathetic. Okay, he's in love. Okay, his wife's a drug addict, but you know, I don't think they made his wife enough of a jerk for the audience to be like okay with him leaving her or whatever he did with her. I don't know, leave her in a ditch. So that was the only wrinkle of it. It was kind of like, man, guy's married, he's dating his chick. But then again, it's the Wild West. Things were wild. So yeah, thumbs up for Tombstone. Very solid screenplay, one you should look at. Listen to the dialogue, note the events that they use as compared to the history if you're digging down into the Western stuff, because I think that's important too. I think you can see what they felt was important to put in and what was unimportant that they left out. So, all right, I'm finally caught up. I am your Huckleberry, and that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. Check us out on the green site, the orange site, and the black site for more videos. What's coming up? Well, this weekend I'll have some actual events after yesterday's disaster. Happy Easter, by the way. Friday I'll be at Woodbridge. Saturday I'll be at the New Jersey Folk Festival in I believe that's at the Rutgers campus in New Brunswick. And Sunday I'll be at Earth Fair, and I forget what town that is, but you can go to my website and check it out. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.